Good evening, y'all. It's Rick with Uncommon Communion. I am glad that you are here for a special Maundy Thursday evening reflection. Let us begin this reflection as we begin all of our time together by recognizing, realizing that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of God and each other. I went to liturgy this evening and I was very pleasantly surprised, not surprised, but pleasantly um, just pleasant that we celebrated the washing of the feet by having volunteers come forth and receive that. And we didn't wash each other's feet, it was our two priests who did that. Nevertheless, I came forward and it was a really powerful moment. And someone captured a photo of it, so I'm going to share that in the notes before I begin my evening writing for tomorrow's reflection. I wanted, though, to share this evening briefly about this particular moment in the Triduum, because I think it's an important moment, and I don't think it's one that we very often honor through ritual or through even mindfulness, paying attention to it. And that time is the time that Jesus spent in the Garden of Gethsemane, as we often hear it called the agony in the garden. And I want to say that I do think this time, this moment, after we strip the altar, which is the end of the Maundy Thursday liturgy, and before we gather tomorrow at noon or tomorrow in the evening to remember Christ's death on the cross, there is this moment this evening, which is, like I said, the time that Jesus is in Gethsemane. And to understand why this means something so significant to me theologically, we have to think about a basic question, and a question that we're not going to have an answer to. Let's get that out of the way right up front. Although I do think we can certainly wonder and reason what could very well be true in this situation. And the simple question is this: as Jesus was in the garden, he knew that he was going to be arrested. I believe at that point he knew he was going to be crucified. That wasn't any kind of supernatural knowledge, because that's what the Romans did to anyone who displeased them and anyone who crossed them. And the cross was something that Jesus was very familiar with, everybody in his time, because the occupying power, the Romans, had people on crosses apparently a lot of places. So it would not have been uncommon for Jesus and others to be traveling the roads of what at that time was called Palestine. That was the Roman territory, and see people on crosses. So Jesus knew that that was coming. And the question then becomes this: he knew he was going to die. Did he know he was going to be resurrected? And again, that is I think, a really important question, because if the answer to that is yes, he knew how things were going to unfold, then what is the agony in the garden about? Scripture tells us that he prayed and was in such distress as he called out, take this cup away from me, that he had tears that were like blood. So he is literally so intense with this that it is like blood is flowing from him. And the question is, again, what is the intensity? Is it just his death, which of course is going to be horrible and painful? And, I don't think any human would, want that kind of pain and shame and suffering. So was that what the agony was? Was it just him saying, God, don't let me die? Or was it something even greater? Because if he knew he was going to die and he knew 100% that he was going to be resurrected, then really the death is just, a passage from point A to point B. I want to suggest to us, though, that when it says that Jesus was fully human and fully God, there were times when his human limitations were what were going to be operative. And I want to suggest to us, again, you may agree or disagree, but this is important for my own spirituality, as I'll share with you here in a moment. I think that were times when the humanity of Jesus, especially what we experience as humans, that not knowing, right? When we are in those moments where we know we are on the threshold or the precipice of something, or when we are waiting for something and we don't know what is going to happen, and we are afraid and we are anxious, and maybe we are angry and we are despairing, we are lost. And yet, perhaps, hopefully, like Jesus in the garden, we are also trusting. We are also saying that, God, I can't see beyond this. I trust that you are going to make something out of this, that you are going to turn whatever happens next, turn that into good. You will transform that. And I really think that is what is the agony of Jesus, is that question. And I think it's a very human question. And I think it is an important question. If you watch Jesus Christ Superstar, the song Gethsemane is really all about this. That's where Jesus, that's the lyrics of that song. It's that question about, and I really believe Jesus felt this idea that, God, I have done all of this. I have preached all of this. I have exhausted myself. I have emptied myself. I'm going to die. What will become of that, right? Will there be something after that? And I think that's where he is. I think he is trusting, and eventually, ultimately, he accepts. He says, God, thy will, not mine, be done, which I think is a wonderful prayer that I pray often. And he ultimately surrenders into that, right? And that's really important for me, because I don't know about you, y'all, but I have been in many Gethsemane moments in my life. I have been in moments where I was unemployed and I didn't know what was going to come next. I was in moments where, somebody was sick who I loved, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen. I want to share briefly before we conclude with a story that actually took place about 10 years ago. I think it was maybe 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I was in my mid 40s, or actually early 40s at that time. And it actually happened on Holy Thursday. And that's an important part of the story. I'll tell you why here in a second. So I had gone into OSU, which is Ohio State, and they have a dental program. And for a reduced cost, you can have dental students overseen by full dentists, professors, work on your mouth and your teeth. And that's what I did. And I had the main dentist come in, and she did a very thorough mouth exam, tongue and gums and cheeks, and she found something that wasn't supposed to be there. It was a lesion on the side of my tongue. And I was very grateful that she found it, but I was also very concerned. And she was concerned too. And after she kind of, very graciously and very kindly kind of explained the significance of this, she had me go over to another department in the same building that was for malignancies, that handled that. And I believe that very day they took a little sample, basically did a biopsy, and told me to wait. And that was the Gethsemane. I remember that weekend. That happened on Holy Thursday. And I remember that weekend because they said, it's Easter weekend. We're not going to be doing any testing. We will get back to you on Monday or Tuesday of next week and let you know what the biopsy shows. And I had to wait, and I had to not know. And I remember this was really one of the first times in my life, because prior to that, I really had no serious health issues. I had not had any cancer scares. This was really the first time or something unusual had come up, and I had to wait for results. And I remember that particular Easter really sitting in this moment right now, this evening, Thursday evening, Holy Thursday, and then into Good Friday, and then through Easter, praying and trusting and wondering and recognizing that this could be a significant turning point. This could be a point that really where my life changed. So I waited, I watched, I prayed, all of the things that we are invited to do this evening as we remember. Just to finish up that story and finish up this reflection, I did get the news, and it was okay. It was not currently cancer at that time. It was precancerous, and they wanted to remove it. The good news was, and this is really kind of the remarkable thing, because I was at OSU, they had a study going on at that time that actually was exactly this kind of condition. So what they did was they cut it off, which was not one of the best moments of my life. It was not fun, but they gave me a gel that was what they were testing to see if it could remove it or eliminate it. Turns out I was in the control group, so my gel was the placebo, but it did grow back, and they did remove it. So far, years later, a decade later, it has not come back. So that is the good news in this story. Nevertheless, I knew, I had faith that even if it had come back, even if my life had changed in that moment, God was with me. And I really believe that's what Jesus did in the garden as he surrendered to what was coming. I want to close with one of the great hymns, one of the great passages in all of Scripture. And this is from the letter to the Philippians. And this is one that you're probably familiar with. I'm reading it from the indigenous translation that I use in this blog. And this is what Paul says. And keep in mind that this is very theological, and also, I think, just so poetic and so beautiful. And actually, scholars say that this particular piece that Paul is writing here probably predates Paul. So this is probably something he is quoting, that is a hymn, that is a belief statement that he is just writing, quoting here as opposed to creating it. So Paul says this. He says, "Think about yourselves in the same way Creator sets free, Jesus, the chosen one, thought about himself. Even though Creator sets free has always been the same as the Great Spirit and shared everything equally with him, he did not even think of holding on to this in a selfish way. Instead, he emptied himself, became nothing, and gave up all he had. Then, having been born as a human being, he took on himself the lowly form of a servant. As a true human being, he lowered himself even more by following the guidance of the Great Spirit, even when death was waiting for him at the end of the trail, death on a tree pole, the cross. Because Creator sets free, Jesus did this. The Great Spirit gave him an honored place above all others and bestowed on him a name greater than all other names, so that all who live in the spirit world above and on the earth below and underneath the earth will bow their knee to Creator sets free in honor of his name." Now, that glorification is the resurrection, and Paul knew about it. I really believe Jesus in that garden did not. He trusted, he hoped, he believed, but he did not have 100% assurance, because that's just not human. That's just not what we have. So this evening, if you're watching it this evening, or if you're watching it tomorrow, or at some point in the future, I hope that if you are in a Gethsemane moment, this is encouraging, that you feel God's presence in that, and that when a Gethsemane moment comes in your life, and they will come, they do come, I hope that this reflection and what Christ gives us is helpful for you. Blessings and good. Be well, friends.